This is a story about how one woman used storytelling as a survival mechanism. Our story begins with two brothers full of hate and vengeance. They are both kings in two separate kingdoms, and they have both suffered betrayals that they never imagined would come to them. And each have their own means of dealing with it. And mind you, neither are healthy. For the eldest of the brothers has taken it so far that each night he has vowed to marry a woman and murder her before the dawn. And he has done this for 3 years until the kingdom is nearly out of marriageable women. And it is the unhappy, horrific job of his vizier to find the woman for the marriage every single night and to take the corpse of the bride to the grave the next day. Until one fateful day, the vizier's own daughter, Scheherazade, who was one of the most well-educated women of the kingdom, comes to her father and she says, "Father, it is time. It is time that you allow me to marry the king." And he looks at her dumbfounded, for she knows exactly what has been happening. She knows that the king never allows his bride to live to the next day. And he doesn't understand why his daughter would want to put herself in this position. And so he tells her a story, as is the tradition of the time, to warn against her. She knows that she's clever, but he wants to warn her against arrogance of being too clever, because not everyone is able to come out the other side unscathed. She listens to his story of the clever donkey, and she nods her head, and she says, "It's time, father. This has to end." What her father does not know, however, is that she and her younger sister have a plan, and they have discussed this plan upon length. So, on the night that they marry, the sister is allowed to sleep in the bedchamber, as is tradition, at the foot of the bed. And so, after they have gone to the bedchamber and been there for a while, the sister speaks up and she says, "Elder sister, please tell me a story." Because this is the tradition that they have had for years. They have always told each other stories in the evening to entertain each other before they go to sleep. And so the king agrees to hear a story because he likes stories as well. And so the sister, Scheherazade, begins her story, and it's a fascinating tale. But as the dawn approaches, she stops. She stops the story at the time when it is necessary to find out what is going to happen to the protagonist. She creates a cliffhanger. It is what keeps us awake way too late into the night, reading our books when we know we should be asleep. Scheherazade says, "No, it is too late in the night. We need to get some sleep." And so the king, knowing that if he murders his bride, he will never know the ending of this story. And he has to know the ending of the story. And this is Scheherazade's secret weapon, because she knows the addictive force that storytelling can have, that storytelling can be used to heal and to help people and to survive. And right now, she's using it to survive. But ultimately, she's using it as a force for good and for psychological healing. Because every night, he comes to her and he asks her to finish the story, but the story never actually ends because one story bleeds into another story, or there's a nested story within that story, or there's another story within that story within that story. Kind of like a Russian doll, there's always more stories to be told. And so every single night when the king has vowed that he is going to kill his bride, he decides that he can wait another night until 3 years have passed and she has told 1001 tales. And he realizes that he is no longer the same man, filled with a murderous rage, filled with vengeance to kill every woman in his kingdom. He's no longer distrustful of every female in his presence. And Scheherazade has done that through her storytelling. She has taken a monster and through her stories has transformed him into the king he was always meant to be. And so that is really the start of the Arabian Nights. That is why it is 1001 Arabian Nights, because it is her journey of healing this very broken king to be a healed version of himself. And so I'm telling stories from 1001 Arabian Nights in part because in our fairy tale flip episode this month, we have chosen Fisherman and the Jinn, which is one of the oldest tales in this compilation of stories that has been passed on for centuries, thousands of years probably. It's hard to know with oral storytelling tradition how old some stories are. So make sure you stay tuned for more stories from 1001 Nights, and that you listen to the fairy tale flip episode because it is fascinating. All of the different intertwining tangles that we untangle for you from this amazing body of work. I'm Vanessa Y. Rogers, podcast host of Fairy Tale Flip is the podcast that I do with Donna Lee Fields inside my Fabric of Folklore podcast, and I'm a storyteller and a speaker, so make sure you hit subscribe and like and share with someone you think needs to hear this beautiful story of healing. Thanks again. Until next time, keep the fairy tales alive.